Coach, what does it feel like to be back out here, kind of getting ready for the season right around the corner?
Good, especially on a day like today. But it's good. It's the ramp-up time is very little, but I think we always look forward to the first day of training, especially this time of year where you know that February is close and you're getting into competition. You see the light at the end of the tunnel now, so I'm happy for the boys.
Every year is a different group, and what kind of makes this group unique early on, at least from what you can see?
And do well academically. I mean, it's one of the best teams we've ever had. Well, it is the best team we've ever had academically. So I think that has always been a pretty good indicator of maturity, and maturity is always a good indicator of organization, and organization is always a pretty good indicator of being present in game competition. So if that's any indicator, that's a good one, because fall was really good that way in a lot of different ways, but I look at that one all the time as being kind of the leading priority and the best indicator of how a group operates.
You mentioned a lot of good things coming out of the fall. What else specifically did you really like from this team coming out of the off-season?
I think consistency in the training environment. I think that has something to do with older kids. We've got 10, 11 older kids, probably as many as we've ever had in the program, albeit a lot of them are pitchers, and a lot of those pitchers didn't throw in the fall, but at the same time they're very present on the field in terms of their teaching and how they operate in the program. So I think that part's good. I think the strength component has been good from the standpoint of what they're doing in the weight room. Very happy with that. But I would just point again to the consistency of how they operate.
For Michael Doolin and Troy Leneve, are they going to be ready for the season? And is anybody else, potentially not going to be ready for the season?
I think those two right now, we'll take it kind of a day at a time. Obviously, they didn't play during the course of the fall and trying to ramp up and get ready for the spring. So right now, just pushing them along. They feel good, but at the same time, put them on the field when we think it's going to be advantageous for them and certainly the team.
With a lot of guys coming back from last year, after the way things ended last year on the road, regional, how much those guys do you think that sit with them as they prepare for this year?
Yeah, we don't talk about that a lot. Maybe at the beginning of the year we did, just in terms of the guys coming back, but I'm sure I'm sure it sits in their stomach. I think anytime you finish a season not necessarily where you want to be, it leaves a lingering scar or an effect on how you want to go about the next season. So I think they learned a lot from last year. I say the kids that are back, obviously, but I would say their hunger is good. It's a hungry group, and I think for the right reasons too. It's just about trying to get as good as they can as a group.
From the outside looking at it, it seems like depth and pitching, it could be a real strength for this team. How do you feel about it?
If comparing more depth than last year, what that depth means once they get out there and start throwing the ball, we'll see. But I like the experience. There's some guys that have logged some important innings and logged some innings that, from an older kid standpoint, have proven to be beneficial for our team. So the fact that they're back and been in those roles before, there's some comfort to that.
You have a pretty good sense.
We're
Yeah.
going to talk to Enrique today.
Yep.
What has he meant to this program since he's been here, and what are you looking for out of him this year?
He's a hungry kid. He's very competitive. He's very competitive in everything he does. I mean, he's a Dean's List student. He operates well socially, operates well here. He just has a high care level for what he's doing. He's a cool kid. I mean, he's just always out here he's got a good disposition. He always makes contact with me. He's got a good feel of the group. He was out yesterday. He was in the dugout though, and he was teaching the whole time. He was teaching the young kids, and he's got a good way of teaching too. So, he's a special kid in a lot of different ways.
With a lot of arms back, do you have a pretty good sense for who you're going to put out there to start games, or is that going to be kind of a process as you go here?
We've got an idea. I think there's probably 4 or 5 kids that are probably in that mix, and I think the next 3 weeks will have a lot to do with it too, because this is the first time we're really scrimmaging since November. That leg was November 13th. So I think the next 3 weeks and getting them out there and building up the volume and looking at their health and see where they are. I mean, there's some guys, obviously, Holton and Futrell that have been there before, and Owen, he's been there before. So we'll just have to see how they operate in the first few weeks.
When you're talking about guys who spend most of their time in the bullpen, what are you looking for to see that they can handle starting role?
I think endurance, and not just physical endurance too. I think mental endurance. It's it's probably the difference in running a 220 versus a mile. It's just the ability to kind of pace yourself and control your adrenaline over a course of time, which is its own skill. You can't ramp up. I mean, if you're coming in the middle of the game, the end of the game, you're more of a sprinter. You get the ball, you know that there's going to be an end point, and as a starter, there is no end point until the staff pulls you or you pull you. So I think it's kind of a learned skill. There's something to it, and you can't go out the first couple of innings and raise your emotions to a level that you can't recoup them in the third and fourth. So I think it's that. I think it's managing a lot of that, at least in the early time. And we won't have a lot of time to do it, obviously, because you build them up to maybe 75 pitches before we get started. So that is kind of a fluid thing, too, during the course of the season.
You used the word uncertainty last year when we asked you about your pitching going into the opener. You may not have that in terms of roles, but just in terms of number of guys who've been there and pitched, do you feel like you've got a little more certainty this year?
Yeah, certainty is a dangerous word sometimes, but I feel better about the experience and the numbers. And it's not like we have a ton of numbers either, but what numbers we do have, it's more about the experience inside those numbers.
What is kind of your plans for getting more power in the lineup this year? How are you gonna kind of make sure that it doesn't kind of get the way that it did last year sometimes?
I think power is one of those things that happens. I do. I don't think you can get into a training regimen and just start trying to lift the ball. I think it's about getting to the ball and getting to the middle of the ball and doing that consistently. And I think as these kids get stronger and as they learn timing and as they learn to hit the ball at the plate and learn balance, then power seems to come. And I'd point to Spencer that way too. Spencer wasn't, he could have been, but he wasn't really that power person until he came into his junior year. And I think you could say that for a lot of Vanderbilt guys, whether it's going back to Ryan Flaherty or Pedro was one of those rare guys, Pedro Alvarez, who had power. But I think power is one of those things that evolves. I think the biggest thing is just their understanding of how to play offense and what that means to them individually. And really, if we touch home play, that really at the end of it is the most important thing.
How is the catcher situation looking?
Similar to last year. You got Bulger and Espinal's year better. The two kids behind them, Poteet and Law, two good freshmen. Good. Those kids have done well, and their leadership skills have improved as well.
How are you feeling about your infield, and is anything settled there in terms of you have a feel that this guy will start at this spot and so on?
Not yet, but I feel good about that. From the standpoint of having Parker back is a good thing. Having Diaz back is a good thing. Vastine being more of a player is a good thing. We've just got a little bit more depth that way too, I would say, from a younger standpoint. And the younger kids have played pretty well for the most part. So I think right now it's just trying to put the best infield out there that fits us best, and whether that's Vastine or Diaz at shortstop or where's Nolan third or first, I don't quite know that yet, but what I like about them is their ability just to go over there and do it and just keep playing as if that's their natural position, which is a good thing.
You mentioned Holton, Futrell, and Hunter Owen. Is there anyone else who's been training as starters that you're having training in that role this spring?
I would say 50% of the staff is training as starters, and then I would say there's 50% that are training as short people, so or short durations, I should say, short people. that's me, and maybe you, Eric. But as far as long, I'd say probably 50% of them. So there's a decent amount.
The
Middle, go ahead.
The SEC's obviously been good for a long time, but
Yeah.
as you look at it now, I think like most of the teams in the top 10. I mean, is it as? Can you remember it being as deep as it is right this minute?
You know, I think about that every year, and probably not. You know, and I just say that because of free agency. You know, if there's such a thing in free agency that's affected our conference, it's this one. You have more star players. I say that. There's more good players that are wandering back over to this conference, and I believe it probably will be as good as it's ever been. Probably like the NFL, you know, you get those 9-8 teams that are very, very dangerous in the playoffs. So I just think of our league as that way too, and it's probably going to get stronger with the addition of two. You know, you bring Oklahoma and Texas to the party, and then it's pretty solid stuff.
You had Holton and Futrell both starting really vital games in the regional last year. Having people back who pitched in those sort of games already have that experience, what does that do for your staff?
Well, I just think you said it. I think experience is important for any player, and especially on the road. You go on the road in a regional, especially Oregon State, but you could say that about how Devin pitched at Arkansas and how Carter's pitched and several of them. I just think any time that you're pitching in these venues, you do it on the road and you do it in whether it's the SEC or regional experience or super regional experience in Omaha for some of these kids who are on the team. It goes a long way. It does. You start to create a better heartbeat for yourself and rhythm, and that usually points to better outcomes.
Have all the pitchers who didn't pitch in the fall, are they starting to ramp up again?
They're all pitching. Yep, everyone's pitching. So from a health standpoint, knock on something. It's been good.
Kind of a fluid rotation last year. I mean, it's a goal
Yeah.
to avoid that and be a little, go into SEC play at least a little more set on your 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think if you head your way, Gentry, you'd probably want a 4-man staff. I mean, I've always felt good about our program when, you can fall in line with a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesday or Wednesday starter. That always is the best scenario. Now, you can't always get there. Sometimes it takes time to get there. But if you can get there, it keeps everyone in rhythm. And I think the quicker guys can get to their roles, the better for your team.
What is the benefit of having a bullpen with so many guys that already have experience closing out games?
Experience. Just done it. Done it before. Not to say they can do it again, but they've done it before, and they've done it before against competition. Listen, your best recruits are seniors. Make no bones about it. You get seniors back in your program. Tennessee was very good last year because they had some older kids, and some other reasons too, and they had really good pitching staff. But older kids go a long way in making a team pretty good.
Did you know that Nick and Thomas were going to come back, before the draft, or was that a surprise to you?
Well, I just think that too is always fluid. You just don't know what's going to happen. Whether it's a draft, whether it's free agency, whether it's something else that pulls a young man away. I say this. We're just very grateful to have those kids back. I tell them that all the time, and I don't minimize it. It's a big strength because it just helps your program in numerous ways. You think of the 14, 15 hours away from this place right here that those kids have an impact on younger people and the conversations that they have and management of time and so on. So yeah, it has a lot to do with what's going on in the field, but it has so much to do with what's going on off the field.
After losing so many contributors in the outfield besides Enrique, have you kind of decided, who might be stepping into those roles?
There's a few of them that way too. I think, I don't want to name all of them, but yeah, I think we've got some good players that way. The guys that played some against Sanford and Arizona State will potentially play again. But I like the versatility of all of them too. You got several guys, not that they can play center field like the guy who's out there right now, but they play pretty well and they can play all three positions, and I like that.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
guys.
you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.